Hi, Ronnie here, Amber's Night, coming at you with a second of three I'm going to do today. First impressions of systems I bought um, just after Christmas. The second one I want to talk about is Savage Worlds. I'd heard so much about this, particularly watching Game Geeks and seeing Kurt annoy the hell out of people by constantly talking about Savage Worlds. But I finally got a hold of this. This is the deluxe version. There has been, since this, a deluxe Explorers edition, which is essentially the same book but in a smaller print size, um, which is about $6.99, and I have to say it's the best $6.99 you're going to spend in a while. What can I say about this system to kick it off? I really like this system. I think it's a very fast and fluid system for what I've read so far. I've yet to run a game of it, but I'm about to. Making up characters, very, very simple. 5 stats. It's a dice stat game. That is to say, you don't have a static number. Your stat and all your skills are a die type. I'll find a character sheet so we can actually discuss this more properly, if my fingers will actually work. The 5 attributes, stats, are agility, smarts, strength, spirit, and vigour. And you start at a D4 for each of those. You then have 5 points. 1 point raises it up 1 die type. You can go D6, D8, D10, D12. You can't start with a skill or an attribute more than D12. So you have 5 points. Then picking certain races will allow you special abilities, or perhaps one of your stats will start a little higher than human. This is a generic system. Just to let people know, it's not a fantasy game. It is a generic system for use with any time period. It's a strength and a weakness. I'll get to that in a second. You then have 15 points to spend in skills. Skills again, same thing. They all start at D4. You can add points to them. If you don't have a skill in something, when you roll it, you roll a D4 and you subtract 2 from the final total. Since the 1990s, every system I know has had a version of advantages and disadvantages. First time I heard of it was GURPS. And pretty much every system uses some variant of it. Savage Worlds, they're called edges and hindrances. And they work similarly, a mixture. Edges work as a mixture of advantages and feats for those who use D20. And they can sort of balance each other out. But you don't get to pick that many. Humans get a freebie simply for being human, simply because they're not much copper being anything else. You know, they don't get any special abilities because of not being human. You know, so they get a free edge. You can buy a certain amount of hindrances in order to get more edges, but you don't get that many. I think it's about 3 total you can get, and that's including the free one for the humans. Buy equipment, and you're done. It takes about 45 minutes, an hour. And again, most of that is, you know, that hell that is shopping. The system is very simple. It's designed very much that low-level characters, to use a fantasy, I'll use 2 examples actually. Fantasy, your low-level orc, for say Star Wars, a stormtrooper. The everyday dross. All you have to do, particularly, is hit them. There is a static number. You roll. If you roll enough to do 1 wound, which is 4 points above the target number, you kill them. They've only got 1 wound. they go. As a player character, you get a certain amount of what they call bennies, which are benefit points. These are used in a lot of games as well, be it conviction points, be it hero points, drama points. They allow you to do certain things. Reroll rolls, allow you to save damage and so on. I really like this system. It's very simple. The rolls themselves are open-ended. The D4, for example, it doesn't sound like you can do a lot with it, but if you roll a 4, it's called an ace, which is the highest number you can get on any of the die types. If you roll an ace, for example the 4 on a D4, you roll another D4 and you add it on. So it is possible, if you keep rolling 4s, to get quite a high number. This means that even if you're untrained in a skill where you have to subtract 2, you only subtract 2 at the end. So you could, theoretically, be a hell of a thing. You could be someone flying who has no flying experience at all, but you find yourself needing to land an aircraft. You would start at a D4 minus 2. You could theoretically roll a 4, then another 4, and another 4, and another 4, and carry on, and finally you could get a score that was in the 20s. More than enough to land the plane. You're just one of those really lucky people. I like that. I like that. The other thing, that because you are what they call a wild card, which is an important character. It uses a lot of poker terms like wild cards and raises and aces and so on. It's the kind of thing you would see around a gambling table. Because you are a wild card, you get to roll a 6-sided dice alongside the other dice that you're rolling, and you get to choose the higher of the 2 numbers that you roll. For example, you have a D4. The example of the D4, you would also have a D6, and that D6 can also ace. So if you roll a 6 on that, you could decide to take that D6 score instead and roll another D6 and add it on. It calls itself Fast Furious Fun, and it's not bloody joking. I really like this. I have since bought the Fantasy Companion, which is pretty much the kind of go-to for running fantasy, and I intend to run a game, a fantasy game, a one-on-one fantasy game. I also bought the Horror Companion and the Superpowers Companion, and between those two, I have enough material to run a game based on the TV series True Blood for a friend of mine, and I like that. I'd been looking for a system that I could just, a very simple system, because I only visit for a couple of days, and you want something that's very fast and easy to learn, so you're not bamboozling people with new terms. So I like the idea that it's an easy system to learn. It's very quick, slick, simple, and will do the job spectacularly well. And I like that. So would I recommend this? With one reservation. One of the great strengths is its great weakness, and that is the fact that it's generic. This book is a great one-size-fits-all rule set if you're looking for a high action, easy, simple system to use. The problem is, because it's trying to be all things to all people, and it is obviously, it's only about 160 pages, there's very little specific information for any specific genre. There's very little information for fantasy or sci-fi or superpowers or horror or pulp or whatever genre you want to run. Now that means buying extra books. Now, the upside is that because of this Explorers version, which I've seen it retail for less than £10, and one of the companions which will retail anywhere between 10 and 15, for about £20–25, depending on where you shop, you would have a perfectly good horror, fantasy, supers game, and you would only need those 2 books. There is a science fiction one meant to be coming out. I hope it comes out soon because I really want to get it, because I like the idea of using it for a generic system. But I have to say, Pinnacle Entertainment have really done well here. There is a slew of really, really good, solid campaign settings for all sort of genres, from science fiction to horror, to fantasy of all kinds, that are available either as a PDF that you can buy or get them from your local game store. Really good system, simple, slick, straightforward, easy to learn, easy to run. I would recommend Savage Worlds highly.